Welcome to the SHOPO Hour on News Radio 830 KHVH. Your chance to hear from officers who serve with the Honolulu Police Department. Your questions are welcome. Call 808-521-8383 or send your question or comment on our free iHeartRadio app by using the TalkBack feature. Here's Rick Hamada.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, listen, as I've been telling you all morning long and previewing our discussion, this is the SHOPO Hour. Listening to this hour every Monday morning at this time is as mandatory as having a heartbeat. Because today especially, we're going to get into very important information that's in the public domain. Without any further delay, let's get introduced to the boys in studio, and then we'll jump in with all 8 of our feet. Start things off with Bobby, please. Good morning.
Good morning, boys. Good morning, Rick.
Morning.
Another week, another hour, another healthy discussion.
Amen. Amen. Remind us, role and background and all that for folks.
Yeah, good morning to all your listeners. Bobby Cavaco, I'm the president of SHOPO. Been in the department for 22 years. I'm a lieutenant assigned to the traffic division, and I've been in the union for 20 years in various capacities.
There we go. Thanks, brother. Brother Steve.
Hey, good morning, boys. Always happy and grateful to be here with you, Mark. Steve Keogh, Vice President of SHOPO. I currently work with Honolulu PD. I have 15 years of service. I'm a patrol sergeant right there in urban Honolulu. Urban Honolulu makes up the neighborhoods of Chinatown, Kaka'ako, the Mountain, and Ala Moana. And I've been involved with the union in various capacities since 2013.
Amen. Amen. Very good. Brother Mark.
Good morning, Rick. Bobby,
Morning.
Steve. Another week. Happy to be here. Retired Major, HPD. I did 31 and a half years of service. My last command was Waikiki.
And we're together again. Amen. 7:10 in the morning. Let's just start right off, if you don't mind. I'd like to lead with a rather dramatic event in regard to HB 1567. The representative who introduced the bill over the weekend on Friday announced that he is going to petition Governor Ige to, in fact, veto the bill as it sits on his desk. I opined earlier, I do not ever remember anything of this nature taking place. However, still, the outreach continues with education, discussion, and urging not only the governor to veto, but I've been calling for the remainder of the legislators themselves who signed off on this bill that they need to follow the lead of Representative Matayoshe calling for the governor to veto. Let's go right down and get the fellas and your thoughts and ideas. Bobby, lead us off.
Yeah, along to your comments, Rick, I don't believe I even remember a time when an introducer of the bill actually asked the governor to veto it with the way it passed, with the heavy majority vote. So I think in that sense, we have to give a little credit to Representative Matayoshi.
Yes, sir.
As far as going out on a limb and doing that. Steve and I, along with Michael Kitchens and defense attorney Megan Kao, had a healthy discussion with him, and it was just stating our position on where it was going to go with the bill, and we're just excited to see that he's taking that position, because that's a big undertaking to do.
Amen. Steve?
Yeah. Let's hope that other legislators also follow Representative Matayoshi's lead and admit that this was an error on their part. It's very big of them. It's very important. Reach out to the governor. And Rick, let me just share with you again, you're doing a fabulous job educating people about this bill. You, Michael Kitchens, attorney Megan Kao, what a fabulous group of individuals just putting it out there for the community and educating everybody to actually help make this happen. I really believe in my heart that if it wasn't for people like yourself, Megan Kao, she's fabulous. I've never met her, but I'm a big fan of her. Michael Kitchens with his Stolen Stuff Hawaii group with his 175,000 people. we are really coming together as one community Ohana and sharing with the legislator that we're not going to put up with this. And it's a powerful step in the right direction, but we really need to clearly share our thoughts with the governor, Governor Ige, that this is not the right piece of legislation for the counties within our beautiful state.
And Brother Mark.
So unlike Bobby and Steve, I don't give Matayoshi a pass. This is a legislator elected by the people to do a job, and he failed to do his job, right? Why is he, in this particular instance, going to the governor saying, oh, veto it? Because of the pressure of Michael Kitchens, yourself with this show, and others. So what if we didn't come and all these people didn't oppose this? Would he still be doing the same thing? I highly doubt it. And so we need to hold these legislators accountable, and he's not qualified for the job. He should have caught this. This should have never been introduced. So I don't give him a pass. You know?
So let me jump in. Everything is an imperfect scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand with the response that the representative has shared that his awareness and his level of comprehension as co-chair of the House Judiciary Committee, I don't disagree, should be aware and should be able to vet. But then again, it is a representation. It's his decision. As much as I don't recall somebody requesting a veto from a governor, I don't recall an introducer backing off and admitting that they were incorrect. Your aspect and your point about the volume and the consistent messaging of how wrong this was kind of goes for me back to previous to the end of session. Why were we just sprung with this in the latter moments of the session? It's incumbent on media, people like myself that have a microphone. It wasn't even on the radar. But go ahead.
One thing I want to mention with these legislators and the tricks they pull over there. A bill could be almost dead, and they'll resurrect it. They will resurrect it, and people have no idea.
Oh, they do it. They do it during conference committee. They do a gut and replace.
So my thing is, does this guy have something underlying? Is he coming up for re-election?
They all are.
Right? So there you go. Yeah. If he wasn't coming up for re-election, would he do this?
So it would have been better for him not to do anything?
No, I mean, he's coming forward. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving him a pass.
Yeah.
He doesn't belong to be there. He still needs to be voted out of there.
Well, then his district needs to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. The implications of this, and with the governor, even if he does veto, urging other lawmakers to come out in opposition so there's not a special session called and go through that whole roundup. Anything else to add on this story? Because we have about 37 other.
Yeah, real fast. So let's keep the pressure on. All these people that are listening, Michael Kitchens, this show, everything, keep the pressure on. And now we got to start going after the prosecutors and the judges. But they're just as guilty. So, and we'll get into that.
They're guilty on this legislation?
This type of legislation. Because judges are letting people go. Prosecutors are not prosecuting, right? So it's the same thing. They're letting them out.
And Rick, I think the one good thing to come out of this is the hardworking people that live in the communities throughout our beautiful state are going to understand that they need to keep tabs on their elected officials so this kind of stuff doesn't sneak in again. You know what I mean? Fool us once. Yeah, I don't think something like this is going to sneak past the hardworking people in our communities, and that's the one good thing to come out of this.
And Bobby, final thoughts before our break.
No, I echo Steve's comment. We need to keep on top of it, and it's people like you, Rick, that give like you with the microphone to publicize and inform the listeners and the residents of this state of bills like this that will really have a profound effect on all of us.
Well, it's been a delight. I mean, the timing of all of us coming together couldn't have been better. I mean, that's a blessing, and I'll use that with a capital B. As a matter of fact, at 7:18 in the morning, we're going to come back. Other topicality, by the way, you had the opportunity to get to know 4 finalists for the position of Chief of Police for the city and county of Honolulu. We're going to get into that discussion with the boys, with Bobby, Steve, and Mark. The SHOPO Hour continues in a moment.
KHVH Traffic.
7:21 in the morning. It is the SHOPO Hour, featuring Bobby, Steve, and retired Major. He is Mark. I'm Rick, and we're glad you're with us here. We'll get back into topicality, but first we want to take your calls. We go to Dave in Waikiki. Dave, you're first, and good morning. Welcome to the SHOPO Hour.
Thank you, Rick. I'd like to commend SHOPO for banding together 100 volunteers to clean up Awiki Street. But how does SHOPO feel about having to do the mayor's job for him? Thank you very much.
First of all, let me just say this. The snarkiness that you exhibit on this program every time you call is more an indictment on you than trying to assign guilt and blame to anybody else. So, I will say for myself, in my position as the host, I don't appreciate it, I don't enjoy it, and I don't believe other folks appreciate it too. So, Dave, on that note, I'm not even going to turn it over to the boys. It's a specious, ridiculous statement, and I wish you goodbye. It is 7:22 in the morning. Keali'i joins us from Kailua. Keali'i, thank you for your call, and good morning.
Hey, good morning. How's it going?
Doing well. Thanks for calling.
Right on. I just like to thank all the officers all around. You guys were awesome. Do what you do. Thank you guys for protecting us. But you're so correct on holding our elected officials accountable. This guy missed by far. You know what I mean? And you're so correct. We need to hold people accountable in every walk so we all help each other. You know what I mean? Thank you guys. Awesome. Keep up with you guys' good work. What you guys can do. Right on, Mahalo.
Hey, Keali'i, thank you for the call. And by the way, Scott Matayoshi is your representative. He does represent Kailua Kaneohe. So if you have issues with him, it should be at the ballot box and talking amongst your friends and family. Mark, I think Keali'i's response was spurred by your contribution.
Yeah, Keali'i, thanks for calling in, and you're 100% right. We have to hold everybody responsible. And just think if everybody just did their jobs. Just the crime rate alone would drop so much on this island, right? We need to put this in perspective. We're an island. We are not interstate. So how do these officials let it get so bad? Yeah, I mean...
No, that's all right.
I'm just like speechless
Bobby?
with how these guys just let this stuff go.
Yeah.
I just want to make the listeners aware that actually the one that was really pushing this hard behind the scenes is Carl Rhodes. And he was the one that's really pushing this bail reform. And for the legislators to introduce it and support it, the listeners need to understand that in order for you as a legislator to move up in the rank structure of being a legislature, to gain that clout, you introduce these bills and whatnot. So you do succumb to peer pressure sometimes, even though maybe you may not agree. And I'm not trying to give Legislator Matayoshi a free pass, but the real person behind it was Carl Rhodes.
I just real quick, and this again, my commentary, I want to bring the boys in on this, is it's beyond that as well. If you are a new or a younger legislator, the committee chair controls everything. And the reason why they call Ways and Means and Judiciary the most powerful committees, because their committee is involved in virtually every piece of legislation. If you do not ride sidecar with them on their priorities, the chairs, forget about your district getting the attention, resources that they require, not based on merit, but based on politics. And that was I don't want to bring anybody in on that. Steve, Brother Steve, comments?
Well, I was just going to say, I always appreciate Mark's passion, and let's just be clear. Bobby and I are not next week having breakfast omelets with Representative Matayoshi. We're simply acknowledging that, he admitted, he realized that this was not a piece of legislation that at the time the community needs, and we appreciate him stepping up and changing it. But to Bobby's point, boys, he didn't just come out of the shower one day when he was shaving and say, let me introduce this bill. It's a group effort over there. It's a cohort. And to Bobby's point, he wasn't alone. There are others. And according to Representative Mateoshi, when we spoke with him, he said there were more, in his term, more radical legislators that wanted this bill to be even more out there, which was kind of surprising to Bobby and myself. The main thing is it's being talked about. People know about it. He's wanting the governor to veto it, so we're going in the right direction.
And again, the machinations that take place in the big square building, important to know, one and all. And 7:26 in the morning, gents, let's take caller 2 as we go back to the phone lines with George, Mapuna Puna. George, aloha to you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, and good morning to you, all you gentlemen. Mark, I have a question for you, a 30-year experience. Can you tell the audience here in me, what's the difference between enforcement of 30 years ago opposed to enforcement of today? Has there been some significant changes?
George, thank you so much for the question. Brother Mark?
So I'm going to tell you the enforcement from when I first came in to now. There's hardly any homeless when I first came in. There is tremendous amount of resources and staffing because of homeless. They dumped it all in the police department. So to me, a lot of proactive stuff is hard to be done because a lot of resources is going towards that. So other enforcement, it's about the same, give or take. Yeah. But it's just a shame that they dumped most of it on the police department and no other agencies. So that's what from 30 years to now, that's the biggest thing I see.
Is there an uptick in the perception of big changes from then to now because there's 24 hours, 7 day a week reporting, there's social media, you have news, you have different venues, it's not just a daily paper? I mean, is it just because there's more information being shared that we believe things are worse than before?
Oh, well, definitely the media has changed towards us, and and that's what drives a lot of the public against us, right? Which and they just don't get it, right? Sometimes the police department can't release stuff, so now the news goes with their spin, and that's what the public's believing, right? So so that's huge. It's social media, and you have all these cameras out there. They only have one side, and then so
okay,
that's a little bit of a difference.
Understand. Perspective from both of you gentlemen, Bobby, Steve?
Well, for me, 20 years ago, much different. 20 years ago, you had a gun, a baton, and pepper spray. You didn't have a body cam. You didn't have a taser. We didn't have a less lethal shotgun. So trying to do enforcement is a lot different. Back then, you didn't have the media. If there was an officer-involved shooting, you don't have the media or some kind of board or a law enforcement oversight board looking at an officer-involved shooting and try to slow play it and then Monday morning quarterback it to its death, where 20 years ago that didn't occur. It was just based on the officer's report and whatnot. So 20 years, big difference, huge difference. Fast forward to 20 years now, if there's an officer struggling to make an arrest in the street, instead of somebody a citizen trying to jump in and help, 9 times out of 10, they bust out the cell phone camera and now want to record that arrest to try and get that 10-second clip of an officer doing something wrong. So I think that's a big difference, fast forwarding 20 to 30 years.
Gotcha. Brother Steve.
I was just going to say it's more dangerous. I got 15 years of service. Mark's going back 30, Bobby 20. It's more dangerous to be a police officer in our community statewide. Just for example, urban Honolulu, 2 to 11. Just from the first until now, we've had like 17 robberies. That's one a day. 30 years ago, we were not getting one robbery every day. And remember, robbery is when you get your property taken by force, threat of force, a gun, a knife pointed at you, or you get punched or whatnot. It's more dangerous. And to Bobby's point, I'm okay with accountability, but the level of scrutiny that our law enforcement professionals have to undergo, law enforcement officials, when they do their job, it's like they're guilty and have to prove their innocence. And that's why we have the body camera and everything else. And that's why when I come on your show, Rick, I talk about how important community support for the police departments statewide is so essential. So essential.
There we go. And by the way, thank you, George, for facilitating the conversation. We have a very short break. It is already the bottom of the hour at 7:31. Your telephone calls and more, plus the thoughts and ideas from our friends in regard to the 4 finalists for HPD Chief. And we will carve out time for what's taking place on the beautiful island of Kauai. All of that before the top of the hour, 7:31. Welcome back, everybody. It is the SHOPO Hour, soon to become the SHOPO 4 hours, starting probably today would be a good time to do it, with our brothers in studio, with Bobby, Steve, and Mark, taking your calls. We'll have time for 2 more calls, and then we have a lot of information to cover on this edition of the SHOPO Hour. But I want to start with Wendell. Jay in Kailua will be next. Wendell, Waipahu, thanks for your patience. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to all you guys. I was born here in 1961, a retired veteran, and I have family that are retired police. And you guys forgot to mention one item I think that is very important. This state is a sanctuary state. Are you guys still with me?
Yes, we are listening to you.
Okay. This state is a sanctuary state. Yet people coming in from all corners of the world, some from renegade nations and high-risk countries, and some are criminals, and they're not being screened. Now, I live in Waipahu, and there's immigrants here, and these guys are armed with AR-15s. Now, please, tell Hawaii's people how safe they are.
All right. We appreciate the call very much. By the way, Sanctuary City, there had been legislation at the state to make it a state, but that did not, to my understanding, move forward. But that notwithstanding, Bobby, Steve, Mark, thoughts on Wendell's call?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's right as far as these people having firearms and it's getting more violent. It's just, we've seen it. There's the crime that's happening is more violent, and I was talking to Steve the other day. I was talking to people that work in his district. They're going to at least 3 to 4 weapons calls per shift. Each person now, each officer, right? So they're going to weapons calls. It's like a regular thing now, whether it be guns, knives. They don't know what they're walking into. We never did that before. So
I do want to clarify, sanctuary, that designation requires that local law enforcement you do not report to the federal branch, whichever it is in regard to immigration, or that you do not report when a non-citizen is detained. Thoughts on Wendell's call, and we can move forward?
So when I worked down at the receiving desk, as long as that person was in the system, we notified the feds. We did notify them. We're bound by law to notify them. So I didn't receive anything saying not to.
Well, there's no diminishment from Wendell's call about armed individuals that are that are a criminal element amongst us, no doubt. Thank you, Wendell. Jay, Kailua, 7:40 in the morning on the SHOPO Hour. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Rick. My son lives on the Big Island. He's interested in becoming a police officer. And I know that you've increased the academies to like every 2 months. But he heard through word of mouth that he can't be stationed on the Big Island until he spends a couple of years on Oahu. Is that the policy?
No, there's no policy on that. I think he probably should inquire online with the Big Island PD, but I don't think there's a residency requirement that he has to live on Oahu for so long. I think that's not accurate.
Not live on Oahu. He lives on the Big Island. But once he graduates from the academy, he has to spend time on Oahu first before he can be transferred to an open position on the Big Island.
What's the source of that information, please?
A police officer, I asked.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so sir, that's not accurate. Once if your son gets in and graduates the academy, he'll be assigned on the Big Island. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much for the question. Thank you for being here to help clear up and clarify. So thank you for that. And Jay, thank you for the call and the question. I know that we're already reaching the last quarter of the game for today. There's a lot to cover. 4 finalists for HPD Chief. Very public. There were 2 events, one culminating with Island Insights on PBS. Bobby, would you like to start us off? What should we know about this event?
Well, we watched the PBS Insights program, and there's one thing that I want to address is Major Lambert's comments about the department is corrupt and we have to tear it down to the studs and then rebuild it. It's absolutely not true. That's disrespectful to every single officer that puts on the uniform and comes to work every day and serves this community. And the events that unfolded with the Kealoha administration, along with the 5 or 6 other officers that were involved in those despicable acts, that's on them. That's not on the other 1,900 officers in this great department that serve the community every day. So for him to take that position to play to the media and the police commission that he's going to come in and try and weed out all of this corruption. And let me point out that our department is not under a federal consent decree. If that was the truth, then we'd be under a federal consent decree. So I wanted to address that point.
Steve.
Sure. I don't know if Major Lambert misspoke or realized maybe the perception of his comments. He's been with the agency for almost 20 years, and I think he's proud to wear the uniform. But that comment, absolutely, I don't think it resonated. I know it did not resonate well with officers that get up every day and protect the community. I can tell you that we have some of the most highly, and the integrity level in our department and commitment and dedication to service is outstanding. And I felt bad when I heard that because I don't think he meant that in that context. I don't know if he knew that was going to kind of sound like nails on a chalkboard. But what was sad to me is that the community would get this perception that the officers that are driving around in the marked police cars, again, somehow are, to use that analogy, that we have to tear it down to the studs because it's corrupt. It was just, I don't know if he meant it in that context, but it absolutely rubbed a lot of officers the wrong way. And I think it gave the community an incorrect assessment of where their police department here in Honolulu is actually at. That's not accurate at all.
Mark.
Yeah, I mirror Bobby and Steve. I was kind of taken back on his comments about the department because they're all not untrue. He was saying it's nepotism, it's corrupt, rotten to the core. We got to tear down the studs, right? Mike, you're part of those studs. You're part of command staff. What have you done, right? And one thing I was kind of taken back was there's an unfair promotional system. You have 19 years and you're a major already. How is it unfair, right? I was on interview boards. It is not unfair. It is. I mean, I don't know. And a lot of officers were taken. I got a lot of calls, a lot of texts about it. And, they're taken back. They're proud to be in. There's a lot of proud officers in this department, and they do the right thing. So
at the very outset, in the initial moments, though, he utilized, I'm not picking it, but he utilized the word validity. And he invoked that numerous times about HPD. And one of the reasons why people do not want to become a member of the Honolulu Police Department. There's no validity in the agency. And I was kind of thinking to myself, really? That just didn't even, as a layperson, citizen, that didn't even connect with me. Steve, about the promotions, can you expand on that a bit? Process, what should we know about the procedure?
Sure. We're talking all this time about picking a new chief. Let's kind of just go through the process, right? So you come in as a recruit, you make it through your probation, your field training, you get permanent status. You now have the title of Metropolitan Police Officer. From officer, you can test to become a corporal or a sergeant. So it's officer, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant. Okay, those ranks are civil service exams issued by the city and county of Honolulu, and then for sergeant and lieutenant, you have an oral board, and then depending on how the applicant does, they're ranked according to their written score and then their oral boards that they did, and then depending on if there's a vacancy, they're brought up and they're promoted. And let me touch on this just for 1 second if I can. I'll tie it in with the chief and we'll kind of come back around. Whichever one of these four gentlemen become the next Honolulu police chief, we need to give them a little bit of time to assess their team. And let me tell you why, Rick, okay? You have leaders within the Honolulu Police Department, and then you have pay grades. You have leaders and pay grades. And I got to say that's not my comment. A buddy of mine, I work with him, he's a good guy. He came up with that comment. The next chief is going to have to determine who on his command staff is a leader and who is a pay grade. And with that being said, Rick, I think it's important for your listeners to know, right now in the Honolulu Police Department, we have a challenge facing us. I don't want to call it a crisis, but it's a challenge. Some of the most talented leadership, some of the most brightest, intelligent individuals hold the rank of lieutenant. These are fabulous people with the respect of the men and women that serve under them, amazing individuals that absolutely would be more than qualified to step up and become captains, because that is the next step from lieutenant. For various reasons, we have talented lieutenants, amazing cops, amazing people that don't want to take the next step to become captain. And here's what's occurring. Because we have captain vacancies, we don't have enough lieutenants that want to be captains. So what you don't always have, and I'll straight talk here, you don't always have the best and brightest submitting for captain. Now, how do you become a captain? It's not a civil service exam. It's not run by the city and county HR department. You apply, and it's internally selected through the chief and his people. Okay? And what has happened, in my opinion, is there have been people that have been moved up to positions of power and authority that absolutely are not qualified to hold their positions. Straight up. I would say, without a filter, 30% of our command staff, okay? 3 out of 10. If they were in the private business sector, they'd be fired. They're not there for the right reasons. They put the kukui nuts on, 2 kukuis, 3 kukuis. That defines them as an individual, and that's what's dangerous. A good cop is going to be a good cop whether they wear a uniform or not, no matter what their rank. And then you have some that want to move up simply because the status and authority. And that hurts the rank and file. So the promotion process, again, recruit, officer, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant. Okay? To become a captain, you have to be, it's an internal promotion that's done. It's not done through the city and county. Then from captain, you become major. And the problem with, not the problem, but the way it works right now is you don't have individuals that want to move up past the rank of lieutenant, and that's unfortunate because there's some spectacular individuals.
We need to take a break. Thank you very much for that, Steve, and thank you, Mark, and thank you, Bobby. We do have ground to cover that must be covered, and that happens after this on the SHOPO Hour. It is 7:50.
KHV.
I apologize to our callers online. Unfortunately, time is not permitting further calls for this segment because we're coming up right to the top of the hour already at 7:52. That said, based on the last question about promotions, Mark, we have just a little bit, but what would you like to add?
Yeah, so I like to mirror it, what Steve was saying. It's like there's a lot of lieutenants, and sergeant and lieutenant is a critical part of supervision in Honolulu Police Department. We got some amazing supervisors. They do a hell of a job out there. And there a couple of reasons why lieutenants don't want to make the jump. Number one, pay. Right? Maybe if they're out of the union, right? Number one, once they make captain and above. And from whatever their pay grade is, from lieutenant, they only get a 10% bump. That's it. Right? And no overtime. The reason I never wanted to be a captain or a major was they can move you at any time. Right? So one day you go to work, okay, you're Waikiki today, okay, you're going out to Waianae D8, or you're going to be over here, and you have no say about it, right? So, and It's really hard. It's really hard for some guys to make that extra jump. So there's some talented people that just don't want to take the position.
Understand. Thank you very much for that expansion on a very important topic, because at 7:53, I want to turn it over to Bobby. Bobby, in Honolulu Civil Beat and in previous reports, a lot of attention being delivered on the Kauai Police Department and specifically the chief. And we have an update. Would you mind sharing that? And we also have some audio to supplement this story.
Yeah, so Civil Beat did a news story on the Kauai Chief, Chief Raybuck, and his several investigations over the recently. He had an investigation about making the racist remarks about the Japanese. He also had a complaint with an audio recording to his PIO inside his office. And maybe you want to play that and we can comment.
And again, public information officer, member of Kauai Police Department, and he is speaking directly to her. I want to preface this by saying that Scotty has done an excellent job of being able to air this for broadcast, because within this particular soundbite, there are 18 expletives that were included that we have removed, and 17 of them begin with the letter F. And if you would like to hear the original, you can do so at Honolulu Civil Beat at civilbeat.org. This is the KPD chief with the Kauai PIO.
So I'm not mad at you. I understand what you're saying. I hear you. Okay? But I'm not going to get sucked into the trap of dealing with people who can't be rationalized with. So there are plenty of people on this island that are hurting, and I'm one of them. My friend's fighting for his life. He was shot in the head last week. I am exactly what people are thinking right now. So I'm not yelling at you. Please do not take this personal. But I don't need you to impress upon me how important it is for me to speak. I know. I need to speak to police officers right now. None of can do it. The people that have common sense, the people that realize that no humanity rests in people's in peaceful protests, are going to do what they do. And that's going to obey the law and fight out against injustice. And I'll do that with them. But I can't handle all of the bullshit that social media is putting out right now. I can't deal with it, okay?
Okay.
So I will talk to people.
Okay. Got
all
it.
right? Please don't take that personal. That wasn't in any way directed at you.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Okay. I'll see you in a little while.
All right. Bye-bye.
Once again, giving credit to civilbeat.org, honolulu.civilbeat, Honolulu Civil Beat, and thanking their team for this. Reactions?
You know, I appreciate his passion on what he's talking about, but if you're going to go off the rail, you know, you can't do it to your PIO who's doing her job, who's trying to tell him that she's trying to express upon him that she's recommending that he do a press release or whatnot, speak out to the public on the issue. And for him to react in that manner and take it out on her, even though he states it in the tape that he's not. Remember, he holds the highest position of that department. And that's surely not a representation of that office. And when you tie that in the totality of the circumstances with the Asian racist remarks, this clip that just aired, along with the debacle with the deputy chief and him trying to sweep it under the carpet, that's not someone that we want leading our police department on that island.
Sidebar, she is no longer with KPD.
That's correct. I believe May 3rd she's not there anymore.
Right. We have just a couple of moments remaining. I want to get Bobby and Mark, Steve and Mark, thoughts about this story.
So listening to that in studio, clearly the chief was having a bad day. It goes to show you that anybody, if they're not careful, can lose control of their emotions, right? And you can hear his passion, but again, he's talking to a subordinate. You got to be real careful with that. Also, if he's being recorded by a subordinate, that relationship obviously went sour long before that was recorded, right? If she's recording him as the boss, then clearly that relationship between the two of them went sour long before that recording was done. And I would be mindful that, hey, listen, the chief of police is, he puts his pants on one leg at a time, but when he has to discipline the rank and file underneath him, maybe he needs to remember that, we all have bad days, and it's got to be taken into account, Rick.
Can't believe we're already there. It is the top of the hour. I want to thank the fellas in studio with us today. Bobby, Steve, Mark, thanks so very much. We have about 10. I'm going to ask an unfair question with only 20 seconds left. Each one of you, use one word to summarize today's program. And I'm going to start with Mark. One word to summarize, and we have just seconds to go.
Man, I got a bunch of words, but go ahead,
Steve, one word.
Enlightening.
Bobby?
Outstanding.
Back to Mark.
Excellent.
And there you have it. It is the SHOPO Hour with Bobby, Steve, and Mark. And we'll play Jeopardy the next time we get together on News Radio 830 KHVH. SHOPO Hour, folks.